On the line now, my guest who's Deven Ghelani, and who's the director of the Policy in Practice think tank. Good morning to you, Deven.
Good morning, Larry.
Good morning. I did pronounce that right, did I?
Yeah, you did. You did. Great job. Thanks.
Very good. No, not at all. Not at all. It's always very easy when you've got a name like Larry the Lamb. It's pretty straightforward once they've stopped laughing. So, Deven, I mean, what do you think is to be done?
Morning, Larry. I mean, I think it sounds like you've been quite lucky in the way that you grew up. You mentioned a couple of things. You had a lot of work experience growing up. You mentioned you had good bosses. You mentioned pride.
Yep.
Pride in work, but also from employers that I've been speaking to. Did a long study talking to sort of about 40 or so employers across the country about a year ago. And what they were looking for was pride, which is a recruitment acronym which stands for professionalism, reliability, interest, determination, and enthusiasm. And what you'll notice there is that what they're not really talking about so much is skills. They're talking much more about kind of the soft skills rather than qualifications.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something that, you know, young people, when they're applying for jobs, they need to sort of bear that in mind. It's not about what employers want. It's someone that wants to work.
Exactly.
Particularly for entry level.
Do you think the schools are turning out these individuals, as it were, who are ready, who are the bare materials you need to form into somebody who's going to become a productive member of society? I mean, is there something at that level that needs to be addressed?
Well, I think it's like a lot of young people are doing a fantastic job, and they're playing a really active role in society, either through work or through other activities. And I think you've got to that deserves to be recognised. You know, they've done a lot of them have done fantastically well throughout what's been quite a difficult period.
Yeah.
I think at the same time, we've had a school system that has sort of shied away a little bit from work experience, from recognizing, from bringing employers into schools. I think those are sort of sensible steps that schools could take.
Yeah.
Just bringing employers in, talking to them about what it is that they're looking for, so young people hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I feel. I mean, to me, the obvious thing is, that, as you say, employers are looking for individuals who they can actually start to work with, who they can, inculcate into the system. So if the schools aren't turning out individuals who are ready to work, then you don't have the bare materials, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think employers also have to recognise, and being an employer myself, sometimes I have to recognise this, you want people to come in ready to work on day one, and that can be asking quite a bit, particularly one from young people. Employers have a responsibility as well, to a degree, to be good employers. You mentioned yourself you had a couple of good bosses.
Yeah.
And it's your job, as you say, to start off with raw material and turn them into people that can actually deliver on the jobs that you've hired them for. And that can take varying levels of time, but it's absolutely it's a shared responsibility. I'd say it's a little bit more on the individual from my perspective. But
do you think that the big industries, the big banks, the big organisations, the big money-making operations in Britain could actually do something more for this situation?
I think they're in a really lucky position. They've got the resources. When people come into the graduate training schemes or training schemes of whatever kind, or running apprenticeships, they've got the resources to set these things up. I think the people that really have it difficult are the smaller businesses, the smaller enterprises. And if there were some way of, I guess, giving them a bit of breathing space to do a bit more training and recognize that role, I think you'd see a lot more. Because actually, there's a lot more capacity to grow employment in smaller businesses than there is often in larger ones.
I think that's how they work in a lot of the European countries, in Germany and France. I mean, there is this interconnect between industry and employment services, as it were, so that the industries are getting tax incentives to employ youngsters to actually bring them into the world of business or industry. Do you think maybe this is an area that needs to be addressed more, right? Rather than just talking about benefits and all the rest of it, which, as far as I'm concerned, it's no, living on handouts is no good. It's no good for anybody. The ones that are giving them out are the people that are living on them. But do you think there is room, as it were, to sort of for the government more to move towards encouraging smaller businesses to do this?
I think there is. I mean, you mentioned a couple of things. One, I don't think handouts, young people don't particularly enjoy living off handouts.
No.
From every young person I've spoken to, it's not really something that they get a great deal of value out of. They'd much rather be doing what the government wants them to do, earning and learning, as I think the mood has been in the press this morning. I think in terms of the other schemes, tax incentives can have an impact. Apprenticeships is a shift towards a more European model of having the ability to take people on and have them go out and do a day's training. And I think these are both two things that the government has tried to bring in. And I guess in some respects, they're having an impact. So people that are on apprenticeships are sort of enjoying them when they've been available. I think there is a bit of a barrier for young people particularly young people without skills and qualifications, as the CEC say. In some cases, they can show all the pride, all the soft skills that an employer is looking for, but some employers tend to sift out young people because they haven't got to a certain stage. Now, there are two sides to that. One is, should employers be doing that? Are they sort of stopping themselves from bringing on good talent, bringing forward good talent?
Yep.
Or and the other side is, perhaps from the perspective of young people, they just need to recognise that sometimes you do need to tick the box.
Yep. But tell you what, I mean, just something crossed my mind. I mean, what about sort of instituting a programme of kind of work experience that all kids can go to during the summer holidays? So you set up centres around the country, and everybody can go and get a couple of weeks of hands-on experience of doing something.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on another report related to youth unemployment, and one of the things that they're going to be bringing forward in the next month or so. This is with the Centre for Social Justice, but one of the things they're going to be talking about in the next month or so is using things like using employer groups to really get them involved in the education system, recognising that these sort of bodies have a role to play in the education system, having them come in earlier. Yeah, I think that's a really good, for me, that feels like a really good recommendation, really good step in the right direction.
Yeah, me too.
It's down to employers to feel like they've got the space to do this, but it's also bring them there as well.
Bring them in. I've got to move on. It was lovely talking to you, Dave, and that was Deven Ghelani, their Director of the Policy and Practice Think Tank. Thank you very much for joining us.